We are joined by the relatively new Chief Executive of the British Racing School, Andrew Braithwaite. Andrew, good morning.
Morning, Nick.
And viewers might be familiar with you because we've spoken quite a few times on Zoom before, but you've not been in person. And latterly, as not only the CEO of the British Racing School, but the designer of the prototype prosthesis for young jockey Harry Enright, or aspiring jockey Harry Enright, who was a wonderful guest on the show. How's he getting on?
Really well, Nick, yeah. He's working for Richard Morgan Evans at the moment, a pre-trainer up in Newmarket. And we're working with a team down in the West Country, a team of engineers, young engineers, who are designing a much better version of what we had. So once he's got that, we should be making another step forward. And, wonderful. We went down, actually, to the West Country a couple of weeks ago, and fortunately they're based 500 metres from Taunton Rugby Club, where the IGF have just set up a new hub, so we were able to go and see them and then get straight across onto the simulators that are down there at Taunton now. So so brilliant. Yeah.
That's brilliant. For those who don't remember, Harry Enright's very much a protege of yours at the BRS. He was sort of wondering how he could possibly end up being a jockey with one arm. And there's a lot of people who do a lot of things in their garden shed, but this I think is one of the most important ones. You devised a prototype prosthesis so he could ride a horse.
We worked away on it, and Harry actually came to us without prosthesis and was just riding, just using his stump effectively as a hand, and that was never going to be sufficient to ride a racehorse. So I kind of, I know myself how you use your hands when you ride. So we just started really and started tinkering around, and with a lot of help from a lot of different people, eventually we got there.
And so, do you think he will ride in a race?
I think the brilliant thing about Harry is he just rides really well.
So he's got the talent, the gifts there.
Yeah, and it was a bit of a said in jest, but I said to him one day, one of the advantages of having no hand is that you have to develop a good lower leg, and but there's a lot of truth in that. You ride with balance, and you ride with your lower leg first and foremost. And Harry's got great balance. He's a good size and shape. He's clearly very determined. Look, he's got loads more challenges to overcome. But young lad, born without a hand in Lewisham, ends up riding really nice horses just outside Newmarket. He's come a long way already, so he can do more.
Fantastic work ethic, great determination as well. Clearly something you look for in all graduates of the British Racing School. You're now in the hot seat. You're Chief Executive of what I would consider to be one of the most important institutions in British racing. Just explain the scale of this operation now.
So we're based in Newmarket, but recruit young people from all over the country and place them back with trainers all over the country. So. Yeah, I think we do have a huge role to play. Particularly, we all know there's challenges around staffing in racing at the moment. So our role really is to bring people in, be that stepping stone, that first point of entry, but then look after them really for the rest of their careers in racing, wherever that may take them. And we look to place about 150 young people each year into yards, and with trainers such as Harry. So.
And how have you noticed over time? Change in the British Racing School? Who comes to you now?
Well, still a big mix, and I think we probably, it's hard to put a precise number on it, but we probably have sort of 80 to 100 young people each year who are always going to come. They're keen riders. They're involved in racing.
And that sort of baseline number doesn't really move. That's your
your
solid rock.
Key, and then the further you move away from those young people, the harder you have to work really to recruit them into the sport in the first place, and then two to give them the skills and knowledge and experience that they need to do the job. So what we're always looking to do is make sure that core group keep coming, keep having a good experience, and keep getting good jobs, and then just get better and better at identifying those other young people from perhaps some underrepresented groups and other areas. But you're absolutely right. We speak to trainers very regularly, and that's something that being new in the post, I want to do a lot more of. But the message keeps coming back. It's about work ethic. It's about being prepared to learn. and that's almost more important than your base level of skill or experience, because the trainers, Harry and his colleagues, they can develop people, so as long as we get the right people with the right mindset, then we're 90% of the way there.
Is that changing? Is that getting harder?
I'm not sure that it is to be honest. It's very easy for us as adults, and you hear it all the time, and from the generation above me, particularly perhaps saying, the young people lack work ethic, they lack this, they lack the next thing, and you think you probably, if you're one of those people who say that, perhaps flip the mirror back at yourself, because us adults, we're the ones who've brought young people into the world and developed them. They've learned whatever behaviours they've had, they've learned from listening to, and then more importantly, watching adults. So, but I think it's unfair. I think we see lots of young people who are really committed, work really hard, and I'm sure that will remain the case. You
talk about underrepresented groups. We've seen over the last 2-3 years many initiatives to try and widen horse racing's net, get out perhaps into more urban areas, get out into more areas of ethnic diversity, trying to attract as many women to the sport as men. How do you think we're doing as a sport?
We're getting there. Just I think it feels that we're slightly still dragging a lot of people with us, rather than sort of really people really engaging with it and doing it in a meaningful way. But there's some notable exceptions to that. I know Brian Finch is coming on later, and we're about to run our first regional week, expanding our Newmarket Pony Academy idea, and we're doing that down in Epsom, and I know that Brian and the team down there are big believers in it, and I think we need to, as a whole sport, we need to be far less sort of insular and inward looking, and trying to come up with ideas like the Racing League, which is brilliant, and they have their place, but they're very much ideas that say come and look at us, come to us. And I think we should actually just flip it on its head, and we should be saying, what can we do as a sport? We've got racecourses all over the country, We've got horses. What can we do to go out there and make young people's lives better in particular? And then I'm sure we'll find that they come back to us, they bring their families back to us. If we go out and say, what can we do for you? Over the next 3, 5, 10 years, the payback from that approach and that attitude, I think, will be massive.
And wasn't that one of the things that underpinned National Racehorse Week as well? It wasn't necessarily just, this is an open day, come and look at the horse in our yard. It's right, how can we use either racing stables or race courses in particular as community hubs, as places which are recognisable, which people actually know exist. Yeah. We just want you to know that we exist. It's quite simple, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, absolutely. And when you work in racing and you live racing, it becomes very easy to, everyone is into racing, and it's good to remind yourself every once in a while that most people's knowledge of racing is basically zero, nothing. I speak to loads of people and they say, what do you do? And they immediately think, we just produce jockeys. And you say, well, no, we've produced the people who look after horses day to day and exercise them day to day, and they think, oh yeah, I suppose you would have to sort of get a horse fit, wouldn't you, if you want to race it? I've not really thought about that before. And people, that's the level of most people's knowledge. So we've got to get better at breaking that down, and that's got to be out there and doing things for people rather than expecting them to come in and do something for us.
You've also got to ensure that everybody who gets licensed by the British Horse Racing Authority is up to the job. Harry Derham, you have to pass your modules.
Yep, up there tomorrow, first week of 3. So looking forward to it.
And what does that entail?
All sorts. Actually, reading the sort of plan for the week. There's 3 different modules, and we've got people from the BHA coming in this week. We've got people sort of coming in to do a bit on farriery, a bit on handicapping, all sorts of things. So I think over the course of the 3 weeks, there's going to be lots to take in.
We were talking to Harry Dunlop earlier on. He was talking about the economics and business management of running a yard. People think, oh, well, why does a trainer need to go to Newmarket to learn how to train a horse, especially if you've been assistant to Paul Nicholls for 100 years. But actually, running a business is something that everybody needs tutoring. You, with a financial background, would know that better than anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, consistently over the years, what people setting out on the journey say, the three modules, one's sort of basically about horses, one's basically about staff, one's finances, and consistently they find the finance one most interesting and most valuable, because people don't sit in universities thinking I want to be a business person. What business should I set up? Oh, I know, I'll be a racehorse trainer. It's about the love of the horse. It's about being around people who love horses. Most of them are all racehorse trainers are horse people. Lots of them are people as well, but lots of them aren't business people. So that's probably the most important module. And I think something there's been discussions over the years with the NTF about how we actually continue that support, so we can continue to help people get better at running businesses, because every racehorse trainer in the country is running a business at the end of the day.
Now, you know quite a lot about horses. You know quite a lot about running a business. You know quite a lot about running people now. Why aren't you a trainer?
We're learning. I think actually, my wife used to train pointer. So
yeah, I don't know. It's only a hop, skip, and a jump.
Yeah, I've had a close look at it, and it's interesting. We over the years we've had some instructors at the racing school, and they've been really good instructors, but you can see what they're really interested in. They're really looking at that horse and thinking, if I'd have trained that horse, I'd have done this, I'd have done that. And actually, I'm not like that. I do, I stand in the indoor school. There's a course just started, an 18-week course, very limited riding experience, most of them. And you stand there, and I stand there, I look at the people, and so you just see that young lad, like he's a brilliant shape, like, he could be a jockey, he could be this, this young girl could be that. So I think, I think it's about the people for me, and not the horses. And if you're that way minded, you're better off at the racing school than you are trying to compete with these guys.
Or to just touch on the Khadija Mellah Scholarship, how's that going? This was set up, obviously named for Khadija, who, everybody knows Khadija now. The fact that she's known by her first name only suggests that she's made the sort of impact you want lots of young people to make in the sport. Yeah,
absolutely. And we see to young people coming on interviews, and you say, what jockeys do you follow? And they say, I've heard of Khadija. And you think, well, she's ridden in one race and won it. And there's lots of jockeys who've done a lot more than that in the sport. But she's out there. She's got a following, and she's exactly as I've described. She's about giving back and trying to allow other people to have the experience that she had, and that's what the scholarship does. We've just started with our second cohort. 3 off the first cohort are already either on courses with us or already working in the industry. So it is going to work, and actually the recruitment for it has been really strong.
Good.
And I know Naomi Lawson, who's basically the one who's made it happen. She's only just getting started, so yes, it is really exciting.
Dave,
I'm just interested, Andrew, to what extent there is an untapped seam in urban areas, which Nick has mentioned, and obviously in terms of ethnic diversity, that goes hand in glove with reaching into towns and cities. And as someone who's always lived in a town or city and has no background in horse racing myself, it was just something I almost discovered and thought, my God, this is amazing, But looking at jockeys down the decades, really, Franny Norton, obviously from Liverpool. Charlie Wood was from the slums of Hull, if we go back to Victorian times. Charlie Smirk, I think, was from the East End of London. And it just seems to me that in terms of staffing, that when I go through London on the tube and stuff, there seems to be very little of a connect with people who are doing that. There's a few adverts for Cheltenham and Ascot, but I just wonder to what extent, in terms of jockeys of the future and staff, the staffing problem that we're dealing with, to what extent more progress needs to be made in that area. To me, it seems like there's just a massive number of people out there who have no knowledge of what a fantastic world horse racing is, and obviously one with a very different working pattern, but one that to us who work in it, it's odd, but it doesn't seem unattractive.
No, I think you're absolutely right. There's a huge opportunity there, and I think it would help to grow the sport. We need jockeys are sort of the flag bearers, aren't they? And we need a more diverse group of jockeys really, and there's definitely talent out there, isn't there? It's a sporting pursuit at the end of the day, and I was thinking yesterday who are the greatest sports people of all time, and then you start at the top of the list. You'd have Serena Williams up there, you'd have Michael Jordan, you'd have Sachin Tendulkar. They're not all middle class white guys, are they? So there's clearly talent out there, and those people are relatable to a far wider range of people than lots of the people in the sport are at the moment. So we've got to get out there. We've got to put ourselves out there into those communities and give them access to animals, give them access to green space, give them access to opportunities that we take for granted in racing, but that lots of people in this country don't have. And I think then we'll get a massive payback. And on the staff point, I know that there is a challenge there around recruitment, but we're a tiny industry, so we don't need many people in the big scheme of things.
Interestingly, there are mechanisms in place for jockeys to be recruited, come through the British Racing School and end up doing well. There are mechanisms in place for most of racing's workforce to come through you or wherever and succeed. Becoming a trainer is not like that. What if you're not from a wealthy background, you don't have a background in the sport, but you are interested in pursuing a career to train racehorses? There isn't any mechanism to do that, is there? Can we do anything about it?
Really difficult, and I think we can, as a sport, do something about it, and it's an imperative that we do. We've spoken before about this and having perhaps some sort of centre and on a track or in Newmarket or somewhere where trainers can set up and they can just rent 1 or 2 boxes. Perhaps if it's in Newmarket, and I know Nick Patton of Jockey Club Estates is keen on this, so hopefully a bit of momentum will build. But if you could rent 1 or 2 boxes and you didn't have to prove to the BHA that you had a big amount of working capital and all the rest of it, you could be riding out in the mornings. You could train 2 horses for yourself in the afternoons, and that would allow a lot more people to give it a go and get going. And I think we spend a lot of time in the sport talking about how to grow and how to get more owners in, and trainers are surely they're the sales force for the whole industry, aren't they? They're the people who get owners in through the doors and then keep them and give them a good experience. And again, if you want a horse trained on the flat and you want it to be trained by someone who's in the top 50, of the 55 people named with joint licenses now, 2 of them are female. 50% of the population's female. Maybe some of those females would like to own a horse and have it trained by another female, but there isn't a huge option for that. And it is really, really difficult to start as a trainer in this country, and I just don't think it needs to be. It isn't the same in the States. You can rent 2 boxes on the backside in the straight and away you go, and you can't do that here, and that's got to be a massive miss for the industry. So
that you are actively putting a few feelers out there.
Well, we're trying to support it, and we've actually had discussions.
Are you making any headway?
Well, again, it's, everyone's busy, everyone's got their priorities, and I just feel you need a sort of body of people like Nick Patton and Amy Starkey, people in Newmarket who are really, they're in a big organisation, but they're still at heart quite entrepreneurial people, and I think if we could just get enough of us together and get something going, but it would require some rule changes and some amendments to the requirements to get a licence in the first place. But there's got to be a way to do it, and there's sort of continual drift towards a smaller and smaller numbers of trainers training bigger and bigger numbers of horses. I don't think that's healthy for the sport in the long term. So,
are you ready to get stuck into some more of this week's hot topics?
We'll give it a go.
Good stuff.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.